You're in the right place at the right time. Hey, listen, today we have none other than the awesome counselor Jessica Rojas. She's on my show today. She's a mental health counselor, and she stopped by to talk to us a little bit about mental health, the stigmas and skills that you can find yourself. The stigmas. Let me try it again, Bob. Let's re-roll that. The stigmas with mental health. As we know, a lot of people have stigmas with mental health, and she's going to give you some skills today that you guys can take away in case you find yourself in a mental health crisis. Counselor Rojas, how are you doing today, ma'am?
I am fabulous. It is Friday. I'm feeling great.
That's right. It's Feel Good Friday, right?
Feel Good Friday.
Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and play the promo, and we're going to come back with Counselor Jessica Rojas. So if you're tuning in, send your questions in. That's right. We've got special guest, mental health counselor Jessica Rojas with us today on the show. Hey,
Hey,
Counselor Rojas, we're so glad to have you with us today on the show.
thank you for having me.
Counselor, I noticed that the name of your business is Refresh Total Wellness um, Counseling Services. Tell me about what brought you to select that name.
Well, any and everything that I do, I try to do it from a place of authenticity. And so I chose Refresh Total Wellness because truly I want the women, the adolescents, and or the men that I counsel to walk out of my office feeling refreshed, And I mean that psychologically. I also do mean that spiritually. I want them to have that feeling of mind, body, soul completion. So I often consider myself a teacher more than anything. And when patients leave, I want them to feel like they've got something. And if they can walk out feeling refreshed. I had 2 patients today that said, I felt so much better today. That's ultimately my goal.
Well, I can vouch for you and just say what kind of a wonderful counselor you are, because I know that you've helped me immensely, just in our conversations. I probably need to be paying ahead, and you probably need to go ahead and bill me, but you give me a lot of good stuff. And guys, if you watch Facebook, you connect with her. She's always making these awesome videos. She's always making. So guys, definitely mental health is very, very, very important. Counselor, what is the importance of mental health in all cultures and all communities?
That's a great question. I'm first a woman of God, and so he is the author of what I do. He is the everything to me. And so he often drops things into my spirit. And just the other day, what the Holy Spirit revealed to me, I spoke at a church about maybe a week ago, and my topic was the fruit of the Spirit was peace. And so I worked on, I utilized emotional intelligence. But while I was up there, one of the things that I wanted to add that I didn't is that I think the root to many of our problems that we have systemically here across the world, not just in the United States, but everywhere, is that if people had access and more means to mental health, I think the world in general would be a better place. So if you can go back and you can think about poverty within itself, and we as a people, and I could say as African Americans, have understand poverty because of where we have come from. If there was a individual who was in a poverty type of situation but was receiving mental health services, those services would help that person to begin to see the world in a different way, and hopefully empower that patient enough to go back to school to get education so that they could change the dynamic of their finances and not be stuck, again, repeating the cycle of poverty over and over again. Or if you think about third world countries like Africa, my mom often goes to Africa. She actually is married to a Nigerian man, and she was saying that when she went to Lagos, which is in Nigeria, that there was rubber that was just falling off the rubber trees. There were no production plants, and people were trying to forcing their hands down her window because they were so impoverished. They just wanted some level of money. And so I go back to that whole status. The thing I just mentioned about mental health is that if mental health were provided in some of these places where people could be educated, and if they had the knowledge about how to overcome some of the, slavery, I think we all know first started in our mind. It wasn't really, it was physical, but it was also a lot of mental abuse that happened. And we see that across the globe. We see all of that. If people had an opportunity for mental health services, the world itself could be changed. And so, in my personal opinion, I think we all could use some good mental health.
Thank you, ma'am. What is the stigma connected with mental health? It's like taboo in certain circles, taboo in the Black community. What's the stigma with mental health?
The stigma, I believe, with mental health, and I think it's, it certainly is in the African American community, and in communities at large. I work at the Department of Mental Health in addition to doing private practice, and that's one of the things that we really work hard to is destigmatize mental health. And the stigma is, you're seeing a therapist, you're working through challenges, so it means that you're crazy, that you have something going on, and that something's wrong with you. And having a person to talk to means that you're talking to yourself, or you don't know how to, to navigate life. And that's just completely the contrary. Mental health is really about your emotional and your psychological well-being. When I meet with patients, I always tell them that very definition. And there are 3 main areas that I help people with, and that's how they make choices, how they handle stress, and how they relate to other people. And if people don't have supports in those areas, or if they haven't modeled or seen modeling of good behavior, or someone who has solid mental health, then they're likely to have areas of impairment in their life or dysfunctions that are happening. And so a counselor being able to come in is only going to help make things better.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. I also noticed, counselor, that you are a specialist in eating disorders. And I wanted to ask the question, are eating disorders sometimes dismissed as simply bad eating habits by those that have them and just don't have the understanding as to what an eating disorder is?
I think that could be. I think it's possible that people are potentially looking at it as, oh, I'm just eating because, I like to eat, or, I like McDonald's, the case. But I used to work at a residential treatment center, which is nationally known for being the first in eating disorders. And oftentimes with our patients, our goal was to help them identify what they were eating for. What are these emotions that I'm experiencing, and why am I eating? But yes, I specialize in that. And yeah, I think I agree with you.
Thank you. What are some of the skills that people can use when they find themselves in a mental crisis?
Okay, that's a great question also. So I just finished, like literally today, a really wonderful training, an intensive training called Dialectical Behavioral Therapy that was created by Marsha Lanahan. And it's a really cool therapy. And I'm talking to you about it because I want people to understand what it actually includes. But it includes behavioral science, and it also includes this really amazing element of Zen, where there's a lot of acceptance and change. And the even cooler part about DBT, which I love, and that's my favorite form of therapy that I practice, is that there's this within DBT, there are skills that you get to learn that are transferable for the rest of your life. They're not just, skills that you learn for one particular problem, but in general. So one of the skills that are in DBT that is just incredible is called crisis survival skills. And so I won't go through all of them, but I'm going to give you like 3 steps that you can take whenever you're going through a really difficult time. I'm going to first start with an illustration because I think it's easier to get, and God is so good, he gave me this illustration. If you can imagine that you're in your car and you're driving, and all of a sudden anger pops in your front seat. When God showed me that illustration, anger was really like this angry bull, and I'm sitting next to him, and anger's in driving, and we're going down the highway. Well, if you let anger drive, it's most likely that you're going to end up in a car accident. And so the first thing that we want to do whenever we're going through a crisis and when we find ourselves angry or we're anxious is to first stop and not put those emotions in the driver's seat. I talked to a patient today. The patient said anger has to get out the car. Anger needs to go to the back seat. My dad said to me, he said, I'm getting out. If anger gets in, I'm getting out because there's no way I'm going to drive. So the first thing is to stop and not to give into the emotions. It's totally fine. God gave us emotions in the first place, but they're really to be used for us to do the second thing, which is to observe what is happening. There's also an element in DBT that's called mindfulness. And it's when you have the ability to observe non-judgmentally about what is actually happening. So when you find yourself in a situation, if you can kind of take yourself out and kind of have that, I always say that aerial perspective and look down over yourself in the situation, you can extrapolate a lot of information and simply observe what's happening and observe what's happening in your body. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do, and again, I'm kind of skipping just for today's show, is you want to really consider, will your choices make situations better, or will they make them worse? And if your decisions are going to make things worse, then it may not be worthy to you to do. And I want to clarify by saying they can be made worse, not only for the situation, but how they make you feel. So if they make you feel worse than where you were, then maybe we need to make a whole nother choice. So mental health is really our ability to choose. We get to choose. A lot of people don't know they get to choose, but they have a choice to choose what they want to think about, how they want to feel, and how they want to respond.
I like the way you personified anger. I like the way you did that. You gave anger his own person. I like the way that you did that, and I think if we
Thank
looked
you.
at it like that a lot more, then we'd be able and take that aerial perspective. You know, uh, when a meltdown occurs, and I think that maybe especially for road rage,
Say it
you
again.
know, yeah, to stop and think about something. To stop and I read something the other day, and it was it really struck a nerve.
Hmm.
It was a illustration where someone had a handgun up, and he said, before you discharge your handgun because you're angry, just imagine go sit in your restroom for 24 hours, and now think about sitting there in that small room for the next 35, 40 years of your life. And
Hmm.
that was a very powerful
Right.
statement. And it's
Hmm.
more or less what you're saying too. Stop and take an aerial view, observe. Yeah.
Sort of gather information. That's that Zen element of DBT where, going back to Tibet and some of the monks, a monk is not going to jump, off of his emotions. That person's going to sit back and to meditate and to gather as much wisdom that he can about a situation before he reacts. And so, yeah, that I think is super powerful. It's what we call self-awareness, the ability to know oneself, to know what sets them off, to understand what's happening on the inside, and then to consciously make a decision how you want to move forward.
Oh, so it's powerful. So it's almost like when we saw that the old man sitting up on the hill, and then he told Kwai Chang, grasshopper, take the rock from my hand. So
Exactly.
it's a little deeper, something
It
like
is.
that.
It's much
Okay.
deeper.
All
Yes.
right.
And within that, you said the word super. I want to say it's a superpower.
It's a superpower.
It's a superpower.
Okay. All right.
Superpower.
Awesome. Um. So lately in the
Hmm.
media, we found Counselor Rojas that Simone Biles, the
Yeah.
beloved gold medal U.S. gymnast, withdrew from the Olympics, and Naomi Osaka, the world class tennis player, withdrew from Wimbledon this year, both prioritizing their mental health. So we got a chance to peek behind the veil of greatness and almost where we think people don't have an Achilles heel. What does this say about the importance of mental health on a broader spectrum to us?
I think it's a wonderful thing that they were able to be authentic about where they are in their lives and what triumphs over victory. Right, their victory would be their successes that they've had in the Olympics, but none of those things are possible unless you are mentally sound. You can't begin to do those things unless you have your mental health in check. So I think and I appreciate the platform that they're on. I think it's a wake up call for us as human beings, not just Americans, not just African Americans, but as human beings, that we have to check in sometimes, that we need to realize, like, hey, my mental health is priority over anything I'm doing right now in my life. I had a patient that I work with who was severely traumatized, and the school where I was working wanted her to focus primarily on her academics. And I went to administration and said, that's not what our focus is right now. We need to give as little homework as possible, but this patient really needs more assistance in their mental health before we can do anything. And then we can focus on the academics. So let me do my job as a therapist and get this person emotionally regulated first before we start academically making all these requests. So I think it's honorable. I think it's respectable. And I think more people need to acknowledge when they need to do that.
Is it? And I think doesn't that fall into mainly the stigmas of we talked about mental health, the stigmas of mental health earlier. People not wanting to be transparent about their own mental health and suffering,
Absolutely.
choosing rather
Absolutely.
to suffer than be just transparent about it.
Absolutely. That's that suffering in silence that we talk about. and not being upfront and not being honest about what really is going on in the inside. And the main element, like I said, whenever I have a patient that comes to my office, or often I meet with the parents and the patient, is to demystify that stigma, is to say it's totally fine that you're here today. And actually you being here today helps you get to the next step. And now you're on your road to recovery, to become the person that you're supposed to be. But yes, going back to your point, I think many people are suffering in silence, and they're choosing to do it because, they think they've got it. But I mean, most of us have gone through some level of brokenness, or seen things, or watched our parents live life, and we just never learned the most effective coping skills. So mental health is really about also learning skills to help you manage life's challenges.
Okay. On your page, I
Mhm.
I saw, and I draw a lot of strength from the stuff you post. On your
Thank you.
page, I saw where there was a tattoo, and
Yes.
the tattoo said, "Life is tough, my darling, but
Yes,
so
sir.
are you." And
Amen.
so what does that mean to you? That saying mean to you? Is that like maybe your personal mantra?
Yes. It's interesting that I like that. I saw that. There was a lady sitting next to me, and again, I just believe God uses all mediums to communicate to you. I was quite honestly in the nail salon getting my nails done that day, and this lady, I was in a bad place. I'll just tell you the truth. I was in a bad place, and I looked over and I saw her tattoo. I was like, oh my God. Okay, God, thank you, Jesus. Thanks for the message. I can keep going. Um, and so I just asked her, I said, no, ma'am, I know you don't know me, but I just love your tattoo. Can I please take a picture of your tattoo? But it was a message that came across, I believe, from God to me, that said, Jessica, life is tough, my darling, but so are you. And it is a personal mantra, simply because um, I have been through it. I think we all have been through it. But praise God and thanks be to God, I've had the ability to persevere, to be a warrior, and to be a fighter for myself and for my children and for my future, to fight against the naysayers, to stand up, to stomp up, and to grown woman up. I've had to learn how to do that. And so life is tough, my darling, but so are you. And that's for me and everybody out there.
That's an awesome answer. It brings me to another question. I remember in one of the earlier Spider-Man movies, and my friends into Marvel and everything in comics going to get me because I don't remember exactly which one it was, but it was powerful because
Mhm.
what happened is, because his life was Tobey Maguire was playing Spider-Man, and because his life was just so busy with fighting crime, he never had time to do the things that he needed to do. And he takes off the Spider-Man outfit, he throws it into the trash can, and all of a sudden it's anarchy. There's crime everywhere, but he's just trying to do regular things. He doesn't want to do superhero things, but
Mhm.
he's just trying to do regular things. And he wants to date Mary Jane rather, and
Mhm.
he just wants to be a regular guy. He wants to be a regular
Yeah.
boy like Pinocchio. So
Mhm.
I think we're superheroes in our own right. Um, what should we do when in our daily day to day, when we just want to take our Spider-Man outfit, our Wonder Woman outfit off and throw it in the trash can? What should we do?
The first thing we need to do is to notice our thoughts for anything that is contrary to us being at peace. So if those thoughts are influenced by the day, from what people have said or things that have done that hurt you deeply, I think we have to take it off, like you said. And you have to be able to say, I control my own atmosphere. And this is the word that the Lord gave me yesterday. So I'm sharing with you some fresh stuff that He just gave me.
Go ahead, Rev.
You have to control your own atmosphere. And in doing so, what that means is, what is going to have the greatest level of synergy for myself, that is going to bring me the greatest level of peace. And so for me, I will say I like beautiful things. So I'm going to surround myself by beautiful things, soft things, go back to my five senses. I'm going to dim my lights down in my house. I'm going to light my candles in my house. So I'm going to change the frequency to peace, because, well, actually peace is already there, but I'm going to usher in some peace in my life. And I'm going to turn off the thoughts of my mind that says I need to be concerned about what he said, she said, how she said, what he said, how I need to do it. And I'm going to do what feels right to me. I'm going to walk in authenticity in my space, in my house, in my domain. And I'm going to command and usher in peace. And whether that means I love beverages. So whether I have a smoothie or I have a glass of wine, whether I give myself a bath or a shower, whatever that is, I'm going to take good care of me, because I deserve peace.
We have some people watching today. Frank Mazik started out. Frank said, "What's up? What's up, Frank Mazik? You're watching at the right time today." And Letitia West, a good friend of mine, she says, "Yes, my peace is priceless."
Amen.
And then Letitia West comes back and says, "Absolutely, it's about me."
That's right.
And that was an awesome answer, counselor. I know we're narrowing into the 30 minutes, so I'm looking at the time also. So, but thank you for that answer. I'm looking at your patient promise, and your patient promise says, "We promise to be there for you every step of your journey. Our goal is to help you grow from your struggles, heal from your pain, and move forward to where you want to be in your life." That's an awesome patient promise. And just let me ask you a question. Just like the Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord, who are the called according to his purpose. And we know all things are not good. But how can our struggles help us to grow?
All things are good, I should say. So I'm going to take that back, because the word said it is. The word said it is, and it is true. I work with a patient today who's gone through some trauma, and without disclosing all of what that person went through, the beauty that we were able to get from all of this pain and all of this hurt and all this current sadness is that at some point later on, I said to her, at some point later on, you're going to be able to cross paths with another individual who is going through either the same situation or played your position, and you're going to be able to relate. So oftentimes what it is that we're going through that doesn't seem like God, it is God, because he's going to bring it back so that it can be used to edify either yourself or someone else later on. And ultimately, he is giving you content and he's building your character. So all things are working together for good for those who love the Lord and who are called according to his purpose. I'm going to speak on it today. Really, one thing I can tell you is I'm a very authentic person. I try to be really real. One of my middle school patients, I used to say, I'm going to keep it 100 when I come in, my office. And he said, "No, Ms. Rojas, I need you to keep it 1,000. So I'm going to keep it 1,000. I'm going to see my mother today after 6 years of not seeing her.
Amen.
And of not having a positive relationship with her. And finally, we're going to see each other today. And in the midst of my agony of not having my own mother to be a support for me the way I wanted her to be, in that process, I have become a grown woman. And you would think, because you're 18 and you move out the house, that you should know what you're doing. But even at 39 years old, you still need your mother. You still need the support. And so I have to say, and even in my circumstances, what God has revealed through me and through my pain, he's brought me right here to Charleston, South Carolina, where I never thought I was going to be doing what I'm doing today. So there was purpose in my pain.
Jeremiah 29:11. He knows the plans he has for you. Plans
Amen.
that are good and not evil for desired end. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And we're not going to delve into what we talked about earlier. We're going to save that for another day because I'm not going to hold you off your visit.
Okay.
Um, I'm not going to hold you off your visit. My last question for you
Yes.
today is going to be, what would you say, Counselor Rojas, about your journey so far?
Whew. That's a great question. My journey thus far, I could probably do it much better poetically. Um, I could probably write it, so I'll just do this on the fly. Um, it has been one hell of a journey. It has been a very hard journey. It has been a journey that has required me to jump and to leap with faith that God was going to allow me to land on both feet. It has taken incredible amounts of courage when I didn't have it. It has taken me, there's perseverance through the journey. There are tears through the journey. Um, there's a couple fight scenes in the journey. Um, and now, as I come through the wilderness, I see the promised land. And so I continue to walk forth and toward the promised land, knowing that it is mine and I rightfully deserve it when you've been through what I've been through. And so I move forward and I press towards the mark of the prize for the full calling of God in Christ Jesus. And I'm prepared for whatever he has for me next, to be used the way he would like to use me.
If it didn't cost so much, I'd go ahead and drop the mic. I just dropped the mic right now.
That is hilarious.
I Counselor Rojas, we're gonna have to definitely have you back on the show.
Okay.
Several times. We're gonna have to have you back on the show. I just thank you for your time today. Letitia West chimed in. She said conflicts create growth.
Amen.
And then Letitia West chimed in and she says, say so. Love this discussion. It hit home for me. Well, praise
Yes.
God. It hit home for me too. This was a awesome, awesome,
Yes.
awesome 30 minutes. When she started preaching, I tell you what now, yeah, I'm gonna have to start counseling. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change my job by, yeah, definitely. Because she looks better than me and she's just throwing that stuff out there. I mean, awesome, awesome, awesome.
And thank you for
Thank
having me. This was very enjoyable. It was a wonderful experience for me. I'd love to come back.
Oh, absolutely. We're just so glad. We're pleased as punch to have you. And where can I've got your website up. You said still under construction. www refreshtotalwellness.com. Where can people reach out to you if they need a therapist?
If they need a therapist, you guys can reach me directly at 854-201-1373. Again, that's 854-201-1373. You can also go to the website, refreshtotalwellness.com. You can book appointments there as well. You can Google Refresh Total Wellness. That will give you directions and the phone number here. I'm actually here in the office today. And the address for Refresh Total Wellness is 3516 South Live Oak Drive. We are Suite F. We are the small set of gray suites behind the large brick building in the front. We are essentially pretty much in Somerville, just because of how close we are. But it is considered Monk's Corner. So yes, feel free. I'm that person that you can reach out to at any point, anytime. If you feel like you wanted to email me, you could at jessica@refreshtotalwellness.com, and I will get back to you. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, counselor, and we just wish you Nothing but blessings. And thank you for being so transparent. Laverne Cords chimed in. She said, yes, it's an on-time conversation. And yeah, it was a blessed conversation today. We're so thankful to have you. And I just wish you the best on your I pray God's blessings on
Amen.
your
Amen.
visit today.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
Yes. And for everybody that tuned in today, we had the awesome Counselor Jessica Rojas. And we'll be seeing you guys next time. We're gonna let her go because we've had her over the time now. And for all of you that chimed in today, God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Oh, not that one. That one.